Welcome to this very special episode of Own It. This is a continuation of the hyper-focused marketing series that we have done. And today we're talking bourbon. Can you believe it? Heather Shimala has built almost her entire real estate company around bourbon and the unique spirit that it is in Texas with her company called Reserve 76. So bourbon bites and Burbs is kind of her tagline. And let's just dive right in, taste the bourbon, and enjoy this little time that we have with Heather. So let's go. Tell me about the origin story of deciding to go down the path of bourbon and really wrapping that into how you evolved your real estate.
At one point, we had like 70 people at my house tasting bourbon. Our marketing person was like, why don't you make this something? And so that's kind of how we created Bourbon Bites and Burbs, which is our social group. I feel like everybody thinks they know us because of social media, but when they really get to know you and get to come into your home, it's a whole different level of connection.
Own It, a special edition of hyper-focused marketing with my reserved co-host, Spencer Cole.
I mean, if I'm drinking reserve barrel, 100%, yeah, I'm there.
So we have the most amazing guest today. Let's say if you are at home and you're a whiskey drinker, go get your favorite bourbon or whiskey and then listen to this podcast, because we have the founder of Reserve 76 out in the Dallas kind of area in Texas, Heather Shimala. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I'm excited to be here and I can't wait to just kind of see where this whole thing goes. It'll be a fun little adventure for the next few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, I'm super excited because marketing is just such a cool and unique thing. And as we have discovered on our mini series, from creating your hyper local coffee table book to very curated online giveaways to now your own whiskey and bourbon, what and how, where did you get involved in this particular avenue? Because I love your story.
It was completely accidental. So the funny thing is I did not love bourbon when COVID came around. My husband was a huge bourbon guy, drank bourbon, and I'd kind of walk by and turn my nose up. I was more of like a champagne wine girl back then. But kind of, he's like, just try it. And, I was like, okay, whatever, roll my eyes. And then what would eventually end up happening, the funny story, we tell a lot of people this, is that I would, he'd be his chair and he has a little table next to him, and I'd go up and I would like take a sip. And I'd maybe walk by and take another sip and then another. And the next thing he's like, where's my bourbon? I'm like, I have no idea, Jim. It's evaporation. It evaporated. And so that is my launch into bourbon right there. And so, and then we ended up kind of, taking it from there and having a lot of fun with it.
Now, I have to just ask, just from a bourbon perspective, I see you have the Blantons in the background. I see at least 5, maybe 6 of them. Are you buying the different reserves? Are you a Blanton collector?
So we like all bourbon. We don't discriminate. I mean, we've got, Preservation back here, Peerless, Wild Turkey. Mm-hmm. It kind of started out more as a hobby for my husband and I. It gave us something to do, and we loved traveling. So when we would travel, we would, pop into these little places and see what we could find. So, these, ironically enough, the funny story about these is we were in Fort Lauderdale on vacation a couple of years ago. And in Texas, you can't buy liquor unless you're at a liquor store. Well, we were in Walgreens, and I'm like doing this nudge thing. He's like, what? And I'm like, they have Blantons behind the counter. And he's like, what? And so, yeah, we were like, we would love those, please. And they were like retail. It was the funniest thing ever. Yeah, it was like $70. And so I'm like, oh yeah, we'll take 3 of them, please. So
yeah, and so Hillary, an interesting fact that you do not know about me, but the one time I had Blanton, so I sold Farrah Fawcett's condo after she passed away. I was sold her condo, and I got her liquor cabinet, and I got her Blantons.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, sadly long gone.
All of them. Yeah.
Man, what a bottle!
But I made it. I bet it was for a great time and great stories with the people you shared the Blantons with.
Shared? I'm sorry.
I mean, Spencer, we like sharing bourbon. That's part of our story.
So where did you come up with Reserve 76? Because I am proudly wearing the lovely T-shirt.
Thank you. I love that.
I'm very excited to support.
I love it. I love it. It's one of my favorite shirts. It's so soft. So ironically enough, when we came over to Side, we had a great, I think we probably had one of the best marketing experiences with our onboarding team, because they sat down with my husband and I, and they asked all kinds of great questions. And somehow they picked up on the bourbon, and then they picked up on the 76. And so the reserve kind of ties back to bourbon. Like it's warm, it's luxurious, it's inviting, it's something like it's special. And then the 76, we were kind of talking about how the business had come into fruition, or evolution, maybe is a better way of saying it. And all of the places that we'd had offices or moved from all had a 76 in the front of the zip code. So when they pitched it to us, I think there were 12 names. And it was funny because neither were like, look, but don't tell me what your favorite are. And then we kind of like wrote down our favorite two, and Reserve 76 was both of our favorite ones. So we had nothing to do with it. It was completely the Side marketing team.
That is so cool. And how long had you been in real estate before creating your own company?
When I first started, I worked for a builder, and that was kind of in the mid 90s. And then I got licensed, in 08, because that's when everybody should start the real estate business. But really, I would say full time in 2016 is when we've launched, and we've been in kind of in an evolution of the business ever since then.
So you've been in it long enough to understand what the traditional ways of marketing a brand or yourself are. And this is definitely one unique, super cool, super hyper focused. And how did this all come together with your absolutely adorable custom little label?
I love that. Yeah. So these are the big bottles. And then we shared with you guys, because this is kind of heavy. So I was like, I don't even know if they really like bourbon. So we made little bottles and we sent them to you guys. So I'm not like your typical, I don't like door knocking. I'm not going to make a bunch of phone calls. And so the kind of premise of it was more community than anything, because I always feel like if you create an amazing experience, people gravitate towards that. And then everything else just kind of falls into place. I think the word authentic and genuine are kind of overused in our industry right now. And so for me, it was more of like, what can we do to, one, be appreciative and thank the people that have helped us build the business, but two, also attract other similar people that have similar things in common and kind of create a community. So like we've got people that we've brought together through this that didn't know each other, that like have gone like on trips to their weddings, like at destination weddings, or invited to the baby showers, or, their kids become besties at an event that we host. And so it's just been one of those things for me. It's like, everyone's kind of chasing the next thing. I'm like, I don't want to chase anything. I want to create something.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because I know some people that when someone would buy a house or whatever, they would host the open house, the housewarming party or something, and try to meet people that way. Yours seems much more organic because you're finding one thing that people are. I guess people are really aching to build community. I think these days. So
I think that's the thing too. It's like a community that isn't hard, because sometimes people try and get into these things and it's like, I just don't fit there. And so for us, we host dinners every month at different restaurants. So we pull the community in. And then it's just a matter of getting people together, and then they kind of figure out where they belong or how much they want to contribute or what they want to do with it. And some of our things are, fancy dinners at restaurants that people are wanting to try. Sometimes we'll bring everybody into the house. Like we had a chili cook-off and bourbon tasting bottle share, which a bottle share is when everybody brings their bottle. We kind of do like a blind tasting and then pick who the winner is. And so that's kind of fun too, because, as realtors, people are like, they want to know about, they feel like everybody thinks they know us because of social media. But when they really get to know you and get to come into your home, it's a whole different level of connection.
Tell me about the origin story of deciding to go down the path of bourbon and really wrapping that into how you evolved your real estate, like with your client gifts and your storytelling. Where did that all come from, and what do you do?
So we're kind of sitting at our meeting, everyone does kind of their year-end like reflection and planning meeting. And our marketing person was like, Heather, she goes, I think you're missing something. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, I feel like you're missing an opportunity. She's like, you've got all these people because at that point we had people coming to the house for tastings kind of like right after COVID. So people weren't really, we're in Texas, so we were getting out a little bit faster than everybody else. But it was a situation where at one point we had like 70 people at my house tasting bourbon. And she's like, why don't you make this something? And so that's kind of how we created Bourbon Bites and Burbs, which is our social group. It's separate than Reserve 76. So sometimes people don't even know we have a real estate business when they first meet us, which is kind of great. And they eventually figure out what we do, but it's not kind of the purpose. Like the purpose is to create that community and then everything else kind of falls into place. But we were like, okay, so the people that are in our little cocoon of Reserve 76, like how do we thank them? How do we show them we appreciate them? And so my husband and I came up with the idea of collaborating with distilleries and doing barrel picks where we could co-brand the bottles. And the purpose of that is a dual purpose. Part of the purpose is that we can brand it and then we can give it as client gifts. But we also found that a lot of charities are coming to us like, hey, can we get a bottle of that? And then we're able to donate it to the charity and then they auction them off and raise a pretty nice amount of money for the charities that we support. So it's just, it all goes back to that community and being just really intentional and genuine and just coming from the right place. So to answer your question, that's how we use it. And so anybody that gives us a referral, we give them a bottle of bourbon. Anybody that closes with us, they get a bottle of bourbon. So it kind of works that way. And then we donate it to charity. And don't get me wrong, we have a lot of people that are in our bourbon group that love the bottles too.
Yeah.
So
now before we get, I have a question for you just in terms of real estate, actually real estate involved question, but I got to tell you, it is 5:00 in Iceland, right? So it's 5:00 somewhere. I have to taste this stuff.
It would be criminal if you didn't taste it, Spencer.
All right. So here's the bottle that you sent us. And I do want to point out two other things is that I do have the reserve glass that you sent us.
It. Thank you.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to put an ice cube in that in a moment. But I have my whiskey, specific whiskey tasting glass. Yeah. So I do. There we both have them. So I'm going to pop this. I'm going to pop this baby open here.
Yeah. Pour it in there.
Okay.
Do you want me to kind of walk you through it?
Walk us through it. What's the proper? I mean, I think we've all been to a dime a dozen wine tastings, but not so many bourbon tastings.
Bourbon's a little bit different. So there's things that make bourbon that whiskey can't be. And that's a whole nother podcast that we'll get into. But that being said, so the first thing you want to just kind of look at it, like look at the colors and see kind of what you're looking at. And then and then there's legs, you kind of like swirl it like you do wine and you kind of see the little legs come down. And then you smell, but when you smell it, like, don't keep your mouth closed. You want it like, just because otherwise the alcohol in it will burn and you won't really get a full appreciation of the bourbon. So I'm going to warn you, you can talk to the person who sipped bourbon forever. You can talk to anybody in Kentucky. The first one does burn a smidge every day. So just kind of be prepared for that. And that's okay. That's a good thing because it's killing your taste buds. And then you're going to get that second taste you're going to really taste the flavor in the bourbon. Okay. So you can kind of sip it and then just take a little bit in your mouth and swish it around. And then you can swallow it. It burns a smidge, right, Hillary?
Yeah.
A smidge.
Just a smidge. So the swirling is called the Kentucky Chew. And the swallow where you kind of feel it going down, it's the Kentucky Hug. So that's like the bourbon just giving you a big, nice hug. So that's kind of thing when we're talking to people and we kind of get them into this world. One thing about bourbon that kind of resonated, you talked about our origin story. For us, the world goes so fast. Like it's going a mile a minute. Everyone's on their phones, there's TVs and it's a mess. So bourbon, if you look at the history of bourbon, it's as old as the country, but it's about like slowing down, sitting in a room and talking to people. There's no TV in the background. You're just really connecting with people and learning about them. And that's kind of the beauty of it. That's the part of it that just makes me happy. And it makes me feel like, you know what, if I can pair that feeling with how we treat people in our business, then I'm not really working.
Yeah. That was the follow-up question I had. Thank you for letting me drink something. So the follow-up.
You can have a second sip if you want to.
Oh, okay, I will. I'll definitely.
I will while you ask the question. How's that?
This is delicious. All right, you do that, and then I'll follow up with a chaser. So when you just said it's kind of like your business is kind of like bourbon, like a relaxing thing. So when you choose your clients, where you're working with clients, if there's a mismatch of energy, let's say that you're bourbon and they're tequila, right, or something. Mm-hmm. So what do you? I'm just curious. Do you have people on your team that you feel that there are other people to work with, or because you just seem to have such a that Kentucky hug, so to speak, but a real estate hug is the sense I get from you.
Thank you. That's a big compliment. I appreciate that. To be honest with you, I think at this point in my career, most of the clients we're attracting are the same energy and they are kind of in alignment with what my objective is. Occasionally, I'll get somebody through a sign call or something like that. I go and we vet everybody before we work with them because we want to make sure that the clients that we're working with are going to be able to be workable, for lack of a better term. Like we want to make sure that, if we're like, hey, we need to, do this or that, whether it's a listing or a buyer, if there's resistance and I don't see that they're going to be able to kind of play within the realms of what we need them to do to get to the finish line, I'm going to let them go. I might refer them to another agent. Most of the people on my team are kind of the same energy that I have. Like we all are pretty, they say like attracts like. That's kind of how we are client-wise as well. And so occasionally we'll get somebody on the other side of the transaction that maybe drives us a little crazy, but our own clients are pretty well in alignment with us. And the funny thing is most of our clients become friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And like to relate it back to, a passion for whether it's, bourbon or something else. You're not drinking it to get wasted and not remember the experience, right? Like you want to remember the experience with the client and bring them into your community, like you were saying. I think it's such a very cool niche piece that is so uniquely you and very part of like Texas and neighboring states. It's really cool to find. Most people you don't really find that they've found that passion project. They're still searching.
And I think that's the thing too. And every so often I'll be like, maybe we should try this, or maybe we should try that. And I'm like, nope. No, this is good. Like we need to keep working with where we are and getting to know more people and expand it out a little bit further. A lot of our clients and restaurants are kind of in the northern part of DFW, but there's amazing restaurants and places that we can visit all over the Metroplex that have, fabulous collections that we can bring our clients to and kind of cross-pollinate, so to speak.
No, I've got. And by the way, so now I'm trying it with some ice. That's gonna be the next one.
So it tastes totally different, and the second sip tastes completely different than the first one.
It totally does.
Second sip was fantastic, and then ice I like the way. And I'm more of an Irish whiskey drinker. I used to be a Scotch drinker, an Irish whiskey drinker, and then I discovered bourbon. And I mainly just because of budget constraints, I drink a lot of 1776. If you're familiar with that at all, which is
you got stuff here somewhere.
So a question about your bourbon, and then I go back to real estate, if I may. Do you have any rye in this? Because I'm getting a lot of grass on it.
So the mash bill on this one is, Jim, I might need your glasses. Hold please. Let me get my glasses on. This is 60% corn, 36% rye, and 4% barley.
Okay, yeah, I'm definitely tasting the rye. It's really nice, and it's funny to have rye and corn together, because the whole reason that corn came about is because of the whiskey rebellion, that there was going to be a tax against rye, which is why in Canada rye is much more popular than, I guess rye is having a resurgence here, or popularity surge here. But so I love that when you said the whole history of the area is tied into this. All right, now I'm going to bring it back to real estate, Hillary, I promise. Here it is. So you're saying, you're thinking, I'm going to change it up. I'm going to do something. And then you decide, no, I'm doing what I'm doing. Obviously, when you first started, social media probably wasn't as big a thing as it is now. So are there adaptations? Like, are you doing whiskey tasting on Instagram or something? Or I'm just curious, like, as as there are
Instagram
slight
Live
changes.
whiskey tasting.
So it's okay. Way to spill the beans, Spencer. Yeah. So that's actually the funny part. So my husband hates social media, hates it. He's like, I don't know how it works. He gets so frustrated. So, but he's so good on it because he's really the taste. Like he can be like, oh, I taste the roasted marshmallow and peanut fuzz in this one. And you're just like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. And so for me, I'm more of the go out and I'm the social aspect of bourbon. He's the true connoisseur of the flavors. So much so that when we were here at Bardstown Bourbon doing our pick, they had him come in and sample their Series 10 that they were about to distill and bottle, and he got to help pick the final formula. So it was kind of cool.
That's
so you need to meet him because you guys would geek out about that stuff. But
send me a ticket. I'm flying down there, and I'm there.
I mean, next time you're coming through DFW, just take an extra few hours, and we'll bring you up to the house. But so it's kind of going back to that. I mean, it's one of those things where Instagram Live, we have a Bourbon Bites and Burb Instagram page, but it hasn't launched completely yet. And so we're kind of working through that. But I actually have just talked to him and pitched to him doing a live on a consistent basis. Okay, Jim, what's Jim's pick for the weekend? And open it, talk about it. Back in the early days of this, we did one of the Dant brothers, which they're log still distillery up in Kentucky. One of the cousins lived in our neighborhood, and he came over and we did a tasting with him on, we did kind of 3 different things. We did, because you either love or hate candy corn. And so we did candy corn and bourbon, and then we added peanuts and candy corn and bourbon. And then we did pecan pie. And it was but it's amazing. So when you do a candy corn and peanuts with bourbon, it tastes like a Payday candy bar. And everyone, they were like, oh my gosh. And so it was just kind of fun to try different things with it. And so, so we kind of were but we had amazing results with people watching that and commenting. Even still, I'll have people still will comment on it. And that was 2 or 3 years ago. So, so to answer that question, we are definitely doing that. The other thing that's been kind of fun is I just was recently asked by one of the local restaurants that we host dinners at to teach a quarterly bourbon tasting event to just ladies, because a lot of women are intimidated by bourbon and they don't know how to taste it or what they're tasting, but their husbands are throwing all these fancy terms and names out. I'm like, oh, well, we can make it so that they're comfortable and, we got this. And so
what else would be fun? Tying it back to your real estate, it would be really fun, and I would watch this quite often, is if you could go around DFW and talk about a neighborhood and match it with a bottle and explain why this neighborhood is this bottle. Yes.
Okay. The other thing we talked about doing, because we're in this whole brainstorming phase right now, because Jim has recently left his corporate job and joined our company. And so I'm like, we should go into houses. I'm like, what does this house feel like? Is it a Weller 12 or is it a, Knob 18? And kind of just and put him on the spot, because that's with Jim. We just kind of throw him into it sometimes. Bless his heart. He's always just oh, what are you doing to me now? But and kind of but to your point, I think that would be fun though. Hillary is going to each community neighborhood and be like, hey, Highland Park, what would that be? Oh, it's a this.
Hollywood, do Hollywood, find an old bottle for Hollywood or something there.
I mean, that would be kind of cool too. Yeah. I love that. I love these ideas. These are amazing.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. That's so cool when you really focus and distill down, pun intended, your marketing and your genre of marketing. You can go broad with it. You don't have to do the traditional things like you were saying that just don't fit you. You can go really broad with once you decide it. I want to know kind of takeaways if somebody is thinking of kind of you explained a little bit when we were kind of brainstorming for this podcast, kind of what to do on events, right? And you gave some really good tips. So I would love it if you could just kind of go into when you're creating an event like your Bourbon Bites, What all goes into that? Is it just, do you go nitpicky details, or do you just kind of be like, I'll throw it together last minute?
Oh, no, definitely not last minute. There's a lot of details involved, but we've got a playbook now. So it's kind of like rinse and repeat. We've worked out the kinks with so many things. We're like, okay, now we know exactly what to do. The first thing we do is identify the where. Okay, so where are we going to do whatever we're going to do? And we plan them out pretty far in advance, like at least 6 months out. So we're like, okay, we know what's going on, so we know how to plan it accordingly. And then from there, we treat it like a lot of people treat their traditional real estate events. So we know who to invite, and then we partner with the venue, and then we kind of work with the venue on social media. So we're cross promoting it, so to speak.
Smart.
And then from there, it kind of is very similar to because we do a big Easter egg hunt in our neighborhood. That's kind of where we broke our teeth on the events. So okay, so we know with the Easter egg hunt, we need to put it out this many, weeks in advance. Then we do, a social media post, and then we have an event. And then it's like, okay, the phone call, and then the text message, making sure you're coming. Hey, glad to see you. And then from there, when we're at the event, we're very intentional, making sure we talk to everybody. If there's new people, because the restaurant will open it up as well. And so sometimes there's new people that we don't know. So we'll go in and introduce ourselves to them and then invite them. We have QR codes. We're like, hey, we do these events. We'd love for you to continue coming. So they'll scan the event QR code, and then that brings them into the database. So then from there, and then this, I want to be very specific and very intentional with this one. We do not put them into our general marketing database. So we're not sending them just listed, just sold. We're only connecting with them with regards to the Bourbon events, and then letting them get to know us. And then in getting to know us, I mean, it's like when you're at a cocktail party, someone's not that owns, a car dealership is going to be like, hey, do you want to buy a car? Or, hey, come and look at my blah, blah, blah. You want to get to know them better. And then you realize, oh, this guy owns a dealership. I need a car. I'm going to call him and see who I should talk to. So it works that way.
I think that is, if I'm going to take anything and we're going to distill down the pun intended, down what we're talking about, that is the key, I think, because, everyone looks at Gary Vee, for what he did with he had this passion for wine, and he did wine. You have this passion here, but his fame, it didn't come from, come to my wine store, right? It was, this is what I love doing. Yeah. And that passion led him along the way and became an expert in that. And then obviously a public speaker in terms of it. And I see the same thing with you. And one of the things, like I'm going to talk about one of my kids for a moment. My youngest is really into lip balms. Right, collects lip balms. I had no idea. Gets them from Japan or different companies in the United States, and rates lip balms, and now knows what all the components are. Like, I remember I bought something and they almost slapped it out of my hand. He was like, "No, you don't want that because that has pallidum or whatever it was that it had in it." Says, "You want this one," and had this expertise and has a small following on online for this. But if people got to know them that way, whatever it is that he was doing after that. Right. That's, you're so interesting. You have this passion. I share that. Tell me about you. And you can ask the same question. You're here. What do you like? And I love that. It just seems such a, it's just pure. There's just something about it. It's authentic, I guess, is really what we keep going to, Hillary, is how authentic these people are.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. You never want to bring somebody in under a false narrative.
Sure.
And that's kind of why we created the other brand. I mean, it's like, that's a logo right there for Bourbon Bites and Burbs. It's on it's in our mirror in our bourbon room in our house. And we've got shirts, and we have it as a section on our website. So, when they register for the events, they are going through our website to get to the event. So it's it's there, but we're not like slapping it in front of their faces. And so.
Yeah, that's so fun. I would love to get your take on the differences in bourbon as you've learned them, right? It's similar to, as you get into real estate, you can very much tell the difference in construction, what's going to be quality, what's not going to be quality. How have you discovered, kind of for us laymen or laywomen, when we're going out there and we're looking at the liquor store and I'm like, ooh, that's a pretty label.
Yeah.
How do I actually navigate it?
That's a great question. And I think that's the thing is it's an evolution. Like when I first started drinking bourbon, so after I was stealing Jim's glasses, the next step was he's like, okay, let's go find something that you like. And so he kind of gave me some things that were lower proof in the beginning so I could taste it and kind of develop my palate for it. So I started with things that were kind of on the lower proof side. To be bourbon, I think it's 80 proof or more. I looked at him and he didn't look up at me. 80 proof or more to be bourbon. And so I gravitate now towards things that are like 90 to 110 proof. So I look at the proof. The other thing that I look at is kind of to your point, Spencer, I like them a little more like, so they say wheat is sweet. So if it's a higher wheat, it's going to be sweeter. Mm-hmm. I like them a little drier. So I do like them with the higher rye content than the sweeter ones. Mm-hmm. Now looking at a bottle, unless it has the mash bill inside, you're probably not going to know, but you can always reach out. Like I have people who text me all the time, all the time. Like I need blah. And I'm like, okay, well, let's talk a little bit. And so we'll kind of go back and forth and have a conversation. I'm like, okay, these are the 4 that you need to look for. And then they'll go look for them and report back to me if they like them or not. So
but it's a very similar skill working with buyers, especially, what are you looking for in a house and really listening to what it is, like helping them dissect it. There's a store I go to in here in Los Angeles area called Wade's Wines. There was a guy there named Marty. He retired, but I think Marty had tasted every bottle that they had there. And you'd ask him, and above their whiskey room it says Malt Disneyland, which I've always liked. But you'd ask him, and he'd say, well, what do you like? And we'd start from there. What are bottles that you've liked in the past? And then he would expand it. So he's like, okay, you like this. Then you already have a bottle of that. Let's give you a bottle of this. And I think, and I really trusted him because he listened to me. And then we would have conversations. I didn't like that. Why not? Okay, now try this. And I'm assuming the same thing is with neighborhoods. Like when people trust you, you build this trust. And it's like, this neighborhood, you're looking for this in a school and maybe there's here, or you want to have open space, closer green space or whatever. So you're here. When you're working with clients, do you find that having worked with bourbon has helped you with your clients, or having worked with your clients has helped you with your bourbon?
I think a little of each. I never looked at it that way, but I think you're right. I think just like anything, like listening is the key to success, whether you're in a marriage, you're in a buyer-client relationship, or you're helping somebody buy bourbon at a store, or helping a friend pair bourbon with a meal that they're doing. Just listening to the wants and the needs of the other person and then mirroring it with what they're looking for is really the key to everything. So like, I'm not going to take, a family of 6 to a condo in downtown Dallas because, there's nowhere for those kids to play. And if they're gravitating towards that, I'm going to ask why. Well, tell me why that's appealing to you. Oh, well, we want to be close to grandma and grandma lives over here. I'm like, okay, well, what if I could find you this at the same price point? Would you be interested in seeing it? And they'll be like, oh yeah, sure. And then we'll show them that. And then that's, their forever home sometimes.
Yeah, and from a steering perspective, just to be really clear, I just have to say this in terms of fair housing. You're not telling them I'm not going to take you to a neighborhood. You're talking to them first, saying, "Oh, here are some ideas." We don't have to go any past that.
No,
I just want
it's
to say
definitely not a fair housing issue. Yeah, if you were like tying it to bourbon, I'm going to be like, okay, they want a condo with 2 bedrooms and they've got 10 kids. That's probably not going to be a good fit. Those bathrooms would be a nightmare.
you hear that, HUD? We're taking in what our clients want.
Yeah, 100%.
I want to know what the return has been. So going back to marketing and being very vigilant and focused on your marketing efforts, whether it's buying the barrel, giving it out as gifts or donations to charities, which I think is genius because that's a write-off and it's free marketing. What are you seeing as your investment, dollar-wise, time-wise, energy-wise, and the return that you're getting?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it could always be better. My husband's now running the numbers for me. So I'm going to say that because he's going to watch us one day and be like, oh my gosh, Heather. But no, that being said, all kidding aside, it's good because it's one of those things where we did the numbers last year and more than 80% of my business comes from somebody who knows me. So there's only a small point that comes, the rest of it's like open houses and maybe a sign call here and there. So that the people that know me have all received something or been a part of this community that we've created. So the return on the investment has definitely been well worth it. I mean, to buy a barrel of bourbon isn't inexpensive, and it was kind of a risk in the beginning. So we were like, okay, let's just try it. Now we're on our third barrel. So
what's a ballpark number? Because I have no idea.
To buy a barrel? It depends on who the distiller is. So it's as little as 10 to 12,000, and it goes on up to 30 to 50 from there. So just depending upon who you're working with. And then how many bottles you get out of a barrel.
Our last how big the bottles are.
Yeah, well, our last one, and because there's like evaporation. So we get like, okay, so you go and you pick the barrel. Well, then they've got to, bottle it. And then based upon like where it was in the rick house, like, it starts out full, but as it, is it by the window? So it's hotter? Is it lower towards the, the ground? So it's like more moisture down there. And so there's all kinds of crazy science behind it. And so like when we did our first barrel pick, there were 9 allocated barrels in Texas. And this is the crazy thing. So there were 9. So 3 went to a big liquor distillery or liquor store. 3 went to one celebrity chef. 2 went to another celebrity chef. And there was the lone barrel, which we got. And I asked the lady who picks, I'm like, how in the hell did you pick us? Like, we're nobody. And she goes, you're going to get our bourbon in front of the average drinker. Like, where you're going to open up a whole new window for us. And we can see that from your social media. That's going to get us in front of a whole new audience. And that's what we want, is that audience. And so I'm like,
so they vetted you.
Yeah, which was kind of interesting. I was like, and I don't have all that many followers, but I mean, I guess it was a good balance of restaurants and people. And
yeah, I think it speaks to you again in terms of authenticity. Of like, you're having people, you're an influencer in a sense, right? So people are trusting you with their homes and stuff like that. But also, you've now also created this separate group of people, this separate affinity group. I love that, because there's got to be some interaction between the two, because you're gonna have business people in one group or business in another, and they finally get to meet each other and they go around that way. I think it's
you're
such a smart way.
Yeah, I'm definitely a connector, 100%. And you're not the first person that said that. And I kind of wear that like as a badge of honor. Like, I want to connect people. I love that. And, the other little area of our business that we've done a lot of over the years is divorce and probate. Well, divorce and probate attorneys, they love bourbon. So it kind of like goes hand in hand with that. So, everything in our business is like intertwined with each other. So, and that's intentional.
Yeah. Divorce. I used to represent a lot of divorced couples, and I got to tell you, I needed bourbon at the end of those days. Sometimes. I mean, that's tough. That's tough. 100%. But again, another niche that you're finding, you're not spreading yourself too thin. This is great.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. I think it's really cool. Heather, before we go, I want to give a shout out to, you've mentioned it a couple of times, but the 2 different Instagram or online followings that you have. And if somebody wants to, like, in their own market, kind of replicate what you've done as far as engaging with restaurateurs and things like that, give us a couple. Definitely do this, and then a couple things that you've learned that you're either not going to do again or feel like you shouldn't have done.
No. Oh God, boy, that's a long list. No, I'm just kidding.
That's a whole other podcast.
From a standpoint of definitely connect with me, because I'm an open book. Like, I am willing to help anybody and everybody. I think that's kind of the right thing to do. So anybody can reach out to me on my Instagram, and that's just my name. So as far as the what to do, I think it's start small and build off of it. You don't need to plan some crazy extravagant event for it to start. Just start small, and then it just kind of takes on a life of its own. Mm-hmm. That would be probably my best advice. The other thing too is, and it's funny because when I'm talking to people, they're like, "Oh, you don't pay for the events?" No, I partner with the restaurant. We come up with the menu, and then from there we host the event and we bring everybody together, but they pay directly to the restaurant. So now if it's something in my house, that's a little bit different, but when we're doing the tastings around town, because it's not tied to my real estate business, it's a whole separate entity. So kind of there's that. What I would have done different. Oh my gosh. I think I would have been better organized from the beginning, because I have a tendency to kind of like dive in and like figure things out. And then from there, that's where the mistakes were made. And so now I've learned kind of it's better to slow down to go fast. Like I've got to slow down, get it all in order. And then from there, I can launch into doing something a little more intentional. But yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to talk to anybody about it at all. I'm excited because this is part of, I'm on a panel at Side by Side, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about too. So
wonderful.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for your gracious tasting today and your expertise. And it was definitely a one. We'll have to do it again for sure.
I mean, I'd be happy to. I'd love it.
I say we do it again right now. Let's do it now.
Well, here, I mean, there's a little left in my glass, Spencer.
I've got just you've got a little. I don't even want to show you where the bottle is at this point. I'm afraid, but
we're going to continue this offline.
Yes.
And awesome. I will wrap very nicely. And we will see you on another episode of Own It. Join us next time where we speak with Shalini Sada, who is one of the top producers at City Real Estate in San Francisco. This is a continuation of our My First Million series. We get to talk to her how she has created her real estate empire, which started, if you can believe it or not, during COVID, and how she pivoted from healthcare sales into the real estate industry and has taken cues and clues from what she's learned in her prior life to this new iteration of her real estate career. So there's going to be a lot of takeaways, so make sure you join us next time. See you there.